Chapter 1. What is sport psychology? Sport psychology, as a specialisation, is a relatively new branch of psychology. It has come about because of the increased professionalism of sport. Sport psychologists work with athletes and coaches to improve their thinking processes in order to improve performance. There is also the assumption that athletes and coaches who have greater success will also enjoy their sport more, and thus will stay in the sport longer. So how do sport psychologists work? It's pretty simple really. When you're working as a sport psychologist, you ask athletes and coaches about the actions and thoughts they have that they feel do lead them to successful outcomes. Then we get them to do those more often. We also ask about the thoughts and actions they have that do not lead to successful outcomes, and we get them to do these less often. Simple, right? If only it was that easy. But in this course I want to show you some tools and techniques that also demonstrate how we work. So where do sport psychologists work? I usually see my clients in my home office, but sometimes I see clients in their sporting workplace, that is, where they train or compete. That way, you can gain a greater appreciation of the types of situations and circumstances they face, particularly if you're working in a sport in which you're less familiar, and especially if there are problems arising from the workplace itself. Because many sports are played on weekends or after hours, a sports psychologist must be free to work whenever their clients are available, and it might not be in your familiar premises or at a time that you usually work. You just have to be prepared for anything. I can't speak for all my colleagues, but my usual process is to identify the issue with the client at the initial phone call. I need to know what sport the client does, and how long they've been involved in that sport, and what level or experience they've achieved. When I see the client for their hour-long appointment, I have the client describe what they think isn't working for them, and their impression as to why, and what they might have tried so far to fix the issue. I usually ask them to identify their own mental strengths and weaknesses, and this is where I might use a questionnaire to help me with the standardised questions on several key mental skills, much the same as those topics covered in this course. But it really depends on how insightful the client is about the issue and the reasons that it has become a problem for them. So, here's the touchy question. How much do sport psychologists charge? The maximum recommended schedule of rates is annually published by the Australian Psychological Society, the APS. The recommended hourly rate in 2013-14 is $228, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a sports psychologist charging this full amount. I would say figures of $120 to $150 would be usual, but some may charge more, especially if clients are referred by a medical GP and the issue is claimable on Medicare and the sports psychologist is registered for the rebate. When sports psychologists work for a team in some ongoing capacity, they might agree to a contract which specifies how many hours per week they are required to be available on the premises for clients to work with them, how many unseen hours they might put in when clients might want to meet off the premises, how many hours of education type workshops might be run for the team, and how many hours of specialist work, for example, running a SWOT analysis midway through the season to prepare for the finals, or team building or leadership training is expected, and come up with a figure that reflects that level of commitment. That's only fair. The reasons why people go into sports psychology as a profession are numerous. It's not for the money, nor the job security, that's for sure. But it is loads of fun to work behind the scenes with motivated athletes, and this is probably the reason why I keep coming back. Sports psychologists by nature are trained as psychologists, so there's a tendency to wanting to help. And did I mention how much fun it is? It's great.